Hi there, my friend. It's Pastor Greg. Welcome to Transforming the World. Have you ever heard the poem by Robert Frost called The Road Not Taken? It's one of my favorite poems. The poem tells the story of a man traveling down a path in the woods, and he comes to a juncture where there was once one path, there are now two. And of the two roads, he looks at them, the one is well-traveled. The other one doesn't look like too many people have traveled that path. And Robert Frost in the poem says, I chose the one less traveled. Every time I read that poem, it just generates this fascinating feeling in my heart. It's one of my favorite ones. Probably because I have physically encountered these trails in my life through the many hikes throughout the mountains that I have made in my lifetime. And because I have spiritually encountered these two paths in my walk of faith. Now, the Apostle Peter encountered one of these as well, and we're going to examine his story in just a moment. And I want you to see a lesson here on loyalty as demonstrated by Peter, who makes a choice on what path to follow. We'll be back and talk about this in just a moment. I'm Pastor Greg, and you're watching Transforming the World. In our Disciples Journal, question number 2 asks this: do I stand for Christ when situations are difficult? And in those difficult situations, we are at a spiritual crossroad. We can either turn away from the Lord or stand and be loyal. That's what the Apostle Peter faced while Jesus was on trial. Standing in the courtyard, Peter was asked if he was an associate of Jesus. And that's where the situation became difficult, because if he were to speak up, he ran the risk of being arrested as well as an associate of Christ. Sadly, at that point, Peter chose the easy path. For him, personal safety was a whole lot more important than loyalty. He denied Jesus 3 different times that night. You read the story in Luke 22:56 through 62. Christ says that the road to salvation is a narrow one, and few ever find it, Matthew 7:13 and 14. But I suggest to you that the path to loyalty is just as narrow. Because loyalty to Christ is not always the easiest. Loyalty to Christ seems to be the one less traveled, but it is the path that we must choose. It really is. And maybe you're asking yourself, okay, what's that look like? What does loyalty to Christ look like? What is choosing to be loyal to the commands of Christ? How do I live that out day to day? Well, we're going to talk about that tomorrow. Talk to you tomorrow about how and why to demonstrate loyalty to Christ and why it's so important. But in the meantime, I just want you to keep in mind that making a choice to follow the commands of Christ is a demonstration of loyalty. Keep that in mind. When you are faced with a very difficult situation where you have to stand up and let the whole world know that you are a Christian, or you could just remain silent and let them guess, that choice, those two paths that you have come to, you must make a choice. One of those choices leads us to loyalty. Keep that in mind. Please keep that in mind as we prepare to continue talking about this tomorrow. You've been watching Transforming the World. My name's Pastor Greg, and I'll talk to you then.